I am a property developer. I've been doing this for over 8 years. I have done over £30 million worth of deals. I started with nothing, and in this video, I'm going to show you my portfolio and how you can do the same thing too. So before I was full-time in property, I was a management consultant. I used to work for some pretty big brands. Now, interestingly enough, when I was actually doing that work, I actually used to work in the building next to the one we're going to go and see, which is that big building ahead. So I always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit anyway. And I got to a point in my career where I could have quite easily, knuckled down and carried on in the climbing that corporate ladder, but it just didn't appeal to me. And I got invited to a property seminar. I'd always been interested in property. I just didn't know how to do it. But I never had the funds to do it, because I always thought you needed money to do property. I always thought you needed like big deposits to buy properties. So when I was invited to that property seminar and realized there was a different way of doing things, I thought, right, this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. So I went all in. I went, right, I'm going to go and do property. And I learned all the different property strategies. So we're outside our Hales Road project here. This is an old care home conversion where we converted the property to 12 individual flats and then sold them all off. Now the numbers on this project, and the reason I wanted to show you this one, is this was on the market for £1.25 million, but it wasn't worth £1.25 million. And this is where a lot of people who are starting out in their property journey get this wrong. They look at what the property is on the market for, not necessarily what the property is worth. Now this property wasn't worth £1.25 million in the state it was in when we bought it. So we negotiated and eventually bought the property for £1 million. We spent about £650,000 doing it up, and then we sold off the individual flats, generating £2.4 million of income. So this was the first building that we took on. We took this on a commercial lease direct to the owner, and we operated it as serviced accommodation building for 7 years before we gave it back to the owner at the end of the lease. It's also the first building that I realized the concept of value, because this particular building was originally configured as a student HMO, but no students wanted to live there because they wanted to live in the new swanky accommodation that the universities had built. So the building owner had a problem because it was empty. So we took that building on a commercial lease, as I say. We repurposed the property to be run as serviced accommodation, and therefore it had a much bigger value. More people wanted to stay there, and therefore we were able to make some serious money out of that property over the 7 years we had it. I think one of the things I learned early on is we took that entire building on. That was a big risk. It was stressful when we weren't necessarily getting the bookings in winter times. When you're watching these videos, some people are like, oh wow, I'd love to do that sort of deal. But start smaller. That's something I've definitely learned, is start with a smaller deal. Start with something like this. This is a little commercial conversion deal. So this particular one was a shop. Now, when we talk about doing commercial conversions, like I say, we'll see some big ones and people think about big numbers, lots of moving parts, and it becomes scary and overwhelming. But the same process that you'd use on a big building like that, you use on a building like this. Now this was a shop that no one wanted. It was an old TV repair shop. We then converted it into 5 apartments. We built a little bit of extension on the back, and we went up a story on the roof as well to create 5 apartments. The bottom 2 were run as serviced accommodation, and the rest as buy-to-lets. So serviced accommodation is when you take a property similar to these. In this case, we've got a 1-bedroom apartment in the front and a 2-bedroom apartment at the back. And instead of putting a tenant in there who pays monthly rental, we will use the properties, we'll furnish them, they'll make them look nice. We'll put them on platforms like Airbnb or Booking.com, and then guests can come and stay in those properties for 1, 2, 3, 4 nights a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, rather than it being their sort of permanent address. Ultimately, it's an alternative to a hotel stay, but you get all the creature comforts of home, like a living room, a kitchen where you can cook, proper bathroom, proper bedrooms, etc. So this particular property we bought as a dilapidated old shop for £192,000. We spent £455,000 doing this property up. We kept hold of this one, so it's all about the monthly income. So we've got a mortgage to pay on it, but this generates us, after all those costs come out, about £2,100 a month profit. Now the beauty of that number is that is roughly equivalent to the average salary in the UK, which means we can do this property, as we have done, and have the average salary in the UK coming in every single month. So the property around the corner, we took on a commercial lease, and we leased that property for £7,000 a month initially. Now again, when you're starting out, that is a big number. I mean, to be honest, it's a big number for anyone. So that was a lot of risk, but we had 8 apartments in that block. And roughly monthly, as an average, the properties would generate about £30,000 of income. So by the time you've taken off all the cleaning costs, all the commissions, all the electricity costs, the council tax, the rental payments, etc., they were still generating a roughly between £5,000 and £10,000 a month profit, depending on occupancy rates, whether it was winter or summer, or whether we had things like the Cheltenham races. So all in all, still a very profitable deal, but not something I would advise people to start with. So here we are at one of my earlier developments. This is on London Road in Gloucester. Now, we bought this old doctor's surgery off another developer, and we converted that part of the building into 5 flats. We then built this new extension on the side to create another 7 flats, making 12 flats in total. In terms of numbers, we purchased the site for £500,000, spent roughly about £1 million converting and building the new build behind me, and then sold all the individual flats for just under £2 million to individual owners. So this was realistically my first bigger project, okay? So it wasn't like the little shop we talked about. So I learned a lot from this project, okay? First thing I learned is things are always going to take a lot longer than you might think. So one of the biggest lessons I learned on this site, and it might not be what you think, okay, is that when you are working with your architect and when you are working with the local planning authority about details, just make sure that when they suggest something, you understand exactly what they are suggesting and the implications of it. For example, the railings on this building, on the externals, were exceptionally expensive, all because of the slight top piece having to be bespokely made. So it cost an absolute fortune for these railings, £30,000 odd somewhere. So depending on the deal, depends how it is funded, but the majority of my deals, and probably the majority of the deals I'll ever do, will be funded by investors. You'll generally have ambitions beyond your bank balance. And no matter how much money you have got, the deal that you do, and if you're always continually growing, the next deal is going to be bigger than the first deal, etc., then you are always going to run out of money at some point, which is why it's really important, no matter what property strategy you're doing or what property deal you're doing, to learn how to raise funds for your property deals. Now, when you start talking about commercial conversions and the deals I do, they tend to be bigger in size. You don't actually need as much money to do those deals as you may think, because we can use what's known as leverage. And we can leverage bank finance. We can leverage development finance lenders. So you don't need as much money to do property deals as you think you do when you're following a proven strategy like our commercial conversion Develop It framework here at the Property Success Alliance. So this is our Britannia warehouse project, an old office block in the historic docks here in Gloucester, which we converted into 38 rental apartments. So we bought this building off the owners after all the tenants, their commercial tenants, moved out, and then nobody else wanted to rent the property. So they put this up for sale, they put it on the open market, and then we were subject to an open market competition to win this building. We converted it into 38 rental apartments, and these are now held and they rent out every single month. So we bought this building for just around the £2 million mark. We spent a further £2.2 million doing the building up, and when we refinanced it, because we keep it for rental, it was revalued at £6.6 million. Now, the rental income from this property is £37,000 every single month. So how does it make me feel? It makes me feel great, because again, we took an empty building that nobody wanted, we converted it into flats that people do want, and we make some money in the process. So all in all, makes me feel great. So do you need any money to invest in property? The simple answer is no, but it comes with a complex it depends. It depends on the deal, depends how you structure the deal, and whether or not you need any money or whether or not you need someone's money. Now, that is a big differentiator between those that are successful in property investments and property developments and those that aren't. You may need money to do your deal, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your money. The thing that you need to be a successful property developer is you need to be a little bit tenacious. But nobody is successful on their own. I have not been successful because of things I have done. I am successful because of the people that have helped me become successful. So make sure you are working with the right teams. You've got the right builders, you've got your right planning consultant, you've got the right funders, the right brokers, you've got the right mentor, someone who has been where you want to be to help you get where you want to go. We've talked about lots of different property strategies. If you want to get started yourself, if you click the link in the description and in the comments, you can download a free Getting Started in Property guide. If you want an even better reason, it's completely and utterly, absolutely free. So click the link and download your guide. So this is the next project we are looking at. This was an old residential house that was carved into 7 flats. We've taken it all, we have extended it, we've reconfigured it all, created 10 new flats ready for sale. So let's go and have a look at those ones. So this is a 2-bedroom property that we are looking at. We tend to do the open plan kitchen, living, dining space. And as you can see, we've got a huge living space here. Okay, and then into a very, very nice kitchen here. Here you can see this is the sort of standard we would finish these projects to. So nice coloured cabinetry, nice thin laminate worktops, and then again we put in Neff or Bosch appliances, induction hobs, and then nice integrated appliances for the fridge and the freezer. The benefit of doing that is that we can specify it once and then use that specification multiple times. It also means that when we talk to our contractors about pricing up the jobs, they know exactly what specification they need to price. Let's go and have a look at the bathrooms and some of the bedrooms over here. Bathroom, nice big over the shower bath, chrome towel rails, nice sinks, big mirrors, lots of lights. Then into this, which would be the master bedroom in this particular flat. And as you can see, a very big bedroom here as well, and we've got a slightly smaller, still a double-sized bedroom next door as well. And this then is the second bedroom, again still a really good size, and this property is here ready for someone to buy and move in and make it their home. So when we're doing these conversions, generally we stick to the same sorts of budgets, and because I've been doing this a while now, I know what things cost. So it makes it a lot easier for me to cost up new projects, because I know, for example, this kitchen probably costs £3,000, or that bathroom costs £4,000, or whatever the numbers might be. So this particular project we bought for £850,000. We spent just over £1 million doing it up to the 10 flats, and when sold, they will generate £2.4 million of income in this particular project. So overall, not a bad deal. So let's jump in the car and look at the next one. How do you find a below market value deal? The best way to find below market value is direct to vendor. You can meet them at networking events. You can maybe use social media to attract them to you. But one of the best ways is to actually reach out to vendors using techniques like flyer marketing. The thing about property and property strategies, as we call them, is there are loads of different ways to make money in property. And some of them work better in some areas than others. And some of them will appeal to people differently. So for me, commercial conversions really appealed because I got to satisfy my internal desire, if you like, to see buildings that weren't really useful being repurposed and brought back into life. So we're at one of my biggest projects to date. This is Belgrave Road in Gloucester, and this is the project. Now, it is this particular property, and this particular property, and that one, 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 that one, and that one. 10 properties in total, okay? We bought all 10 of these properties and converted them into HMOs, which gives us about 92 tenants here in this particular project. Now, when we bought this, it was extremely dilapidated. These properties had not been used for about 5 or 6 years. All of them had been ripped out, stripped out, they had nothing in them, so they were unmortgageable. But we bought these all and we brought them all back into a wonderful standard and made fantastic new properties for people to live in. So we bought the property for £2.5 million. We spent roughly £2 million doing the properties up to the standard that they are now. And when we had the latest valuation done for our refinance, it was valued at 6.3 million. Now, that's all good, but we know we're keeping these properties as rental properties, so it's more about the rental income. Now, the properties at the moment generate £55,000 in rental income every single month. And when we take off the cost of the mortgage, we take off the cost of the utilities, etc., that does still leave about £10,000 a month profit for this particular deal. You know, we regenerated this area. What we did is we showcased how you can create very nice accommodation for decent prices, and we get profits as well, so all good. I learnt more on this project about, insect infestation in old timber buildings than I've ever wanted to learn, which again comes with the challenges of development. So, contingencies are very important when you're doing these types of deals. So to be successful as a property developer, you have got to get your numbers right. Ultimately, everything comes down to the numbers. And when I see people who have got it wrong, generally what's happened is one of two things. Either they have bought the property for too much, so they've overpaid, or their refurbishment or the development costs were unrealistic and they've spent too much money doing it up. Those are generally the two things that people get very, very wrong. So if you want to be successful in property, don't get those wrong. Property development isn't easy, but then again, anything that's worth anything isn't really easy. Now it's simple, don't get me wrong, it's about finding the right property, having the right strategy, and making sure that you have the right team to do the thing you need to do. If you've got no money and no experience, the hardest thing you're going to do the first time is going to be raising the funds. After you've done that the first time, and it doesn't really matter whether you're raising £10,000, £100,000 or £1 million, the process is exactly the same. Once you've done that, that becomes a lot easier the second, and third and fourth time. Then it just becomes a case of making sure that you can keep doing, should you want to, profitable deals. So normally when I'm looking at a property, the first thing I'll think about is, okay, what could this be used for? What is the value in this property? And the thing that most people get wrong is they look at the property and go, right, this is the thing I'm going to do, this is the strategy I'm going to do on the property. Rather than looking at the property and going, okay, what would the correct strategy for that property be? So we've got to think about what are we going to create, what does that look like in the marketplace, and who's going to want it? And when you're doing a quick analysis on a building, you want to be looking at what it's going to be worth at the end, what it's going to cost you to convert it, what your profit margin should be, and you should include that at the start, and then work out what you can afford to spend on the building, buying it, the purchase price, not the other way around. So here we are at our latest development. This is Montpellier House in the centre of Cheltenham. Let's go and have a look around. So this property, I was aware of this property because I used to work in the building next door. So come on in, welcome to Montpellier House. So this is now the new communal area for the residential and the office on this one side. So all the fire alarms, post boxes, and a very expensive evacuation system. Fire safety, very, very important when you're doing these types of buildings. Now this originally was all open plan office space. So what we've done is put in all the wall in, which then creates the corridors, and then we have the flats off either side. So these are, 1 and 2 bedroom, what you might call 1 and 2 bedroom starter homes or investment properties, young professionals, maybe some downsizers, those type of demographics for these type of buildings. Now, this was the original lift shaft. So one of the things that we did with this particular property is we took out the goods lift and we then created the bathroom and storage spaces and hot water cylinders, etc., out of what was the old lift shaft. Top tip when you're designing properties as well, if you're designing properties like this, make sure that you offset the doors because it helps with sound transference. So this is one of our 2-bedroom apartments, completely finished. Let's go and have a look. We've staged this particular one so that people can see how they can live in it. And again, very important when you're selling properties to show your potential buyers what it's going to be like to live here. So this is, as you can see, staged as a 2-bedroom apartment, plenty of room for sofas, TV cabinets, nice ornaments, lovely spaces in the kitchen and the dining area, and in the bedrooms you'll see you can get some pretty big beds in there as well. So here you get a sense of how this space could be used to live in. We've got the big bed in here, furniture, and you just get a real perspective as well of the views over the wonderful sunny Cheltenham. So this particular deal was an office block which we've converted into 30 apartments. So we bought this particular building, but we only bought 75% of it because there are still some commercial units that are sitting downstairs. But the bits we did buy, we then converted into 30 apartments. So we bought it for £3.5 million. We spent roughly £2.5 million doing it up, and we are currently selling these properties, which should generate about £8.1 million coming back in. So after all the finance costs and after everything is settled and done, that should leave us with about £1.5 £500,000 profit in this particular deal. The person I worked with on this particular project is one of my mentees. So they came through my training, they came on my mastermind. We've been working together for a number of years now, and we work together on this particular project. So that's really good that he's able to do this project as well, with a little bit of my help. So this particular one is big because it's 30 flats, okay? And there's big numbers behind it. But the strategy and how you do this type of project is exactly the same on this size project as it is on the smaller size project we saw earlier today. So this property was funded by a number of different strategies in terms of funding. Firstly, we used our money, okay? So we've been doing this for a while now, so we were able to roll up some of our funds and put them into this deal. Secondly, we used investor finance. So we went out to our investors and we borrowed money from our investors and offered them a very, very good return for working with us on this particular project. And the third strategy we used is we used what's known as a deferred consideration. So some of the vendors that sold us this property, okay, aren't getting their full amount until the end of the project. Now the way that works is we agreed with them that we will give them some money at the start and then we'll give them the rest of the money at the end of the project. So a deferred consideration. So we used 3 different strategies with this. I've come to the end of the video and I've shown you a small proportion of my portfolio. Now I believe the key to my success is down to 3 things. The first is getting the right type of education. The second is surrounding myself with the right type of people. And the third is taking massive action. Those 3 things can work for you too. To help with the education piece, we have put together a free comprehensive guide on getting started in property. You can get your copy by clicking on the link in the description and in the comments. It will give you everything you need to get started straight away, and it is completely and utterly free. Now make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of these videos. I've been Dan Eaton, it's been great to be here. I wish you all the best on your property journey, and I'll see you in a video like this very soon.